German tanks churn westwards in the war against France during 1940. This simulated scene was shot for the first ever Nazi colour documentary. Its title, Artillery Strikes. Only a single copy has survived. For decades it languished unseen in the German Federal Film Archives. Known to generations only in black and white, the war rendered in colour has an unprecedented impact. And these scenes from the French campaign are not the only ones captured in colour from World War II.
Hitler's personal pilot, an American businessman, Wehrmacht soldiers, and Allied cameramen. They all shared one passion: to film history in living colour. Thanks to them, unique documents have been preserved for posterity. Scenes of Nazi terror and Allied resistance, of death at the front and death at home, of crime and retribution, of catastrophic ends and new beginnings. The Second World War, a tragedy of incomprehensible dimensions. When it was finally over, 55 million people had lost their lives. An entire continent lay in ruins, and any hope of peaceful coexistence in Europe seemed gone forever.
A full-colour legacy from a brown-shirted past. One of the monthly reports produced by the Regional Film Office of Halle-Merseburg in 1938. In a training camp for the BDM, the Nazi organization for German girls, young recruits practice folk dances. For some years, amateur Nazi filmmakers have been shooting party functions and training courses, but now, for the first time, they're using AGFA's new colour film to document the role of women in Nazi Germany.
Footage of a meeting of the Nazi veterans movement in Freiburg, Saxon-Anhalt, again commissioned by the Halle-Merseburg Regional Film Office. It isn't always the key occasions in the Nazi state that have survived on these strips of coloured celluloid, many of which were buried for decades in the obscurity of state archives and private collections. But these rare documents do provide unusual insights into the period, not least due to the dramatic realism added by the colour.
A parade of Wehrmacht units in Mülheim an der Ruhr in 1938. The Third Reich is brazenly rearming, and no one's willing to do anything about it. The conditions of the Treaty of Versailles, limiting Germany's armed forces to 100,000 men, have long been forgotten. Only 2 years earlier, this city on the River Ruhr was still a demilitarized neutral zone. Now the steps of marching German soldiers once again echo through the streets of the German Reich.
After 5 years, the Hitler regime even seems stable to many foreign observers. High-ranking politicians too are blindsided by the dictator's touted successes. One such gullible statesman is former British Prime Minister David Lloyd George, who visits Hitler's Berghof in September 1936. For 3 solid hours, the leader of Great Britain's Liberal Party meets with Hitler. They discuss the current political situation and exchange memories of World War I. David Lloyd George is genuinely impressed. He considers the Führer a truly great man. "I only wish we had a man of his supreme quality at the head of affairs in our country today," he writes to a friend. Winston Churchill was to comment tersely in his memoirs, "No one was more completely misled than Mr. Lloyd George." The British politician will not be the only contemporary statesman to believe he can persuade Hitler to keep the peace.
Until now, the dictator's true ambitions have only been evident in satellite theatres of war. Since July 1936, a civil war has been raging in Spain between the clerical nationalist forces and adherents of the Socialist Popular Front. On Hitler's personal instructions, German Air Force units are providing active tactical support to the Falange. With the aid of the so-called Condor Legion, city after city falls to the Spanish nationalists. Initially, Hitler had hoped to find a reliable ally in Generalissimo Francisco Franco, the Spanish leader. But once Franco had led his fascist regime to victory in 1939 with Germany's aid, Spain opted instead for a course of cautious neutrality.
Meanwhile, young Germans are also gearing up for action. Under the auspices of Nazi regional director or Gauleiter Joachim Egeling, the Hitler Youth stages a sports tournament in Halle in 1938. The program includes a show by the motorized Hitler Youth, which proves extremely popular. For Reich youth leader Baldur von Schirach, military training for boys is of paramount importance. The Wehrmacht has recently donated 10,000 small caliber rifles to the Hitler Youth. Our goal, a Hitler Youth handbook states, is to achieve a situation in several years' time in which every German boy can handle a rifle as easily and expertly as he does a fountain pen.
August 24th, 1938. The entire city of Hamburg is decked out in honor of the Regent of Hungary, Admiral Miklos von Horthy, who's paying a 5-day state visit to Germany. Hitler is aiming to persuade his guests to take part in the imminent campaign against Czechoslovakia. The immense popularity Hitler enjoys among the German people has now given him the confidence to embark upon the pursuit of his true goals. Every generation he confides to one of his aides should experience a war.
The small community of Mühlberg near Halle is holding its School and Fatherland Festival. Employees from the Institute for Ethnicity Studies filmed the parade for posterity. The seemingly innocuous scenes reveal the reality of National Socialist Germany. The party controls every aspect of social life, and rearmament is almost complete. Thanks to the Nazi rule, Germany's ignominious defeat in World War I has been consigned to the past. Germany is proud of its achievements. One people, one Reich, one Führer.
Berlin. It's summer 1939. The recently completed Reich Chancellery is deserted. Architect Albert Speer has built a gargantuan structure to mirror his Führer's aspirations to power. But Hitler prefers to hatch his plans for the conquest of Poland at a safe distance from his capital. Berliners are all but oblivious to the fact that Europe may be on the brink of war. They're enjoying life in the Third Reich to the full, but their halcyon days are numbered.